am I going to be a good boss or a bad boss? I thought it was that simple. I thought, well, of course I'm going to be a good boss because I had good experiences with good bosses and I decided to be a good boss. Well, let me tell you how that worked out. Well, I thought being a good boss was if somebody came to me with a problem, I would solve their problem for them. For instance, I had one of the therapy techs came to me and said, hey, I'd like the day off. It's my daughter's event at school and I'd really like to be able to see my daughter. And I thought, okay, what does a good boss do? Says, sure, take the day off, okay? Take the day off. And then I figured out the coverage for this therapy tech. The problem was there was nobody to cover. So I became the therapy tech for the day, along with being the front desk person. Because this is early on in our career when I was working the front desk with my husband in our office in Pennsylvania. So now I was running from the front desk to the therapy room, from the front desk to the therapy room. And I gotta tell you, the patient care was not that great that day, but I was being a good boss. That's what I thought. Then as time would move on, employees would come up and say, hey, it seems like there's garbage out in the parking lot. And I thought, okay, taking this on, what would a good boss do? Well, certainly not ask my employee to go clean up the parking lot. That's not a good boss. So I'd clean up the parking lot. I'd go out there and pick up the trash. Well, after a while, I realized, well, number one, I had no freedom because I was making every decision in the office and that I was doing everything in the office. And if somebody wanted time off, I was figuring out their time off. Well, there was no freedom in that. Not only was there no freedom in that, but there was no time for me to do what I needed to do on my job. And after a while, I realized this is not working, being a good boss. And I certainly didn't want to be a bad boss and be angry and bossy and tell everybody what to do. So I started looking around and I started saying, what is it that people who have big companies and have freedom have in place that I'm missing, right? It's certainly not the good boss, bad boss thing. And I looked and I realized that they actually had systems in place, just basic policy manuals in place on when to show up, all right? Sounds simple enough, right? Here's a policy that everybody shows up at 9 o'clock. When we didn't have that system, if people came in at 9:05, why was it such a big deal for me if they came in at 9:05? And then I'd get somebody to show up at 8:45 because they were early birds. They'd show up at 8:45. Other people would show up at 9:05 or 9:10 because they were always running late. But because I didn't have a system, I couldn't even have a conversation about it. And so then I realized, well, if I just have a set of systems on when people show up, just the basics, then everything will work well. Subscribe to our channel below, hit the like, and if you want to leave me a comment, leave a comment on how you like the video or other things you'd like to hear.